All right, let's dive into this query you sent us. It mentioned an Indian Airlines Flight 706 bombing in India, 1976. Now, what's immediately interesting, maybe a bit unsettling, is that specific event, the bombing, didn't actually happen like that.
Right. It seems like more of a historical echo. If you look up Flight 706, you find other incidents. Hughes Air West, Proteus Air. There's even an Air India flight with that number now, so it's easy to see how wires could get crossed over time.
Exactly, a kind of historical confusion.
But the query, even if the details are off, it points towards something real, something complex and, well, deeply suspicious from that same year in 1976.
And that leads us to the actual event we think you were looking for. Indian Airlines Flight 171. It crashed October 12th, 1976.
And crucially, it wasn't a bombing. It was a fire, a really catastrophic one.
So our mission today is to explore that crash. We'll look at the official cause, mechanical failure, but also importantly, the shadow cast over it by India's political situation at the time, the emergency, and who's on that plane.
It started with a long delay, actually. 7 hours stuck at Bombay's Santa Cruz airport. Frustrating for everyone.
7 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was an aircraft swap. The planned Boeing was switched out for an older plane, a French-built Sud Aviation Caravelle, 9 years old.
Okay, so a last-minute change of plane.
Mm-hmm. On board were 89 passengers, 6 crew, 95 people heading to Madras.
And the flight itself.
It barely got off the ground. Almost immediately after taking off from runway 27, the right side engine, the number 2 engine, just failed, violently burst into flames.
Right after takeoff. That's terrifying.
Absolutely. Captain Katie Gupta declared an emergency straight away. They tried to turn back, aiming for a landing on runway 09, a desperate attempt.
But the fire.
It spread incredibly fast. The thinking is it burned through the hydraulic lines. Control was lost. They were only at about 300 feet, maybe 900 meters or so from the runway. The aircraft just plummeted, hit the ground, disintegrated, and exploded. Nobody survived.
A total loss. 95 people.
Yes. But it's important to mention Captain Gupta. Reports say he heroically steered the plane away from airport fuel tanks and hangars in those final moments. He likely prevented an even bigger disaster on the ground.
Incredible bravery in an impossible situation. So the investigation afterwards, it had a clear finding on the how.
It did. The official report concluded it was an uncontained engine failure. A specific part, the 10th stage high-pressure compressor disc in the number 2 engine, failed due to metal fatigue.
Metal fatigue, so a mechanical issue.
That's the finding. Fragments of this disc burst through the engine casing, severed fuel lines, and sparked this massive, uncontrollable fire. The fire likely took out the hydraulics, too. So, officially, a tragic accident caused by mechanical failure.
Okay, tragic, straightforward. But not the whole story, or at least not how everyone saw it.
Not at all. And this is where the context becomes absolutely critical. Why your initial query, even though inaccurate on the bombing detail, kind of hit on something real, that sense of unease.
You mean the emergency?
Exactly. India was under a declared state of emergency from June 1975 to early 1977. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi cited internal disturbances.
And what did that mean practically?
Well, for 21 months, democracy was effectively suspended. Fundamental rights curtailed. Press censorship, severe. They literally cut power to newspapers opposing the government.
Wow.
Over 100,000 people were arrested, many without trial, under laws like MIASA, the Maintenance of Internal Security Act. And the Prime Minister's son, Sanjay Gandhi, had enormous power, pushing controversial policies like forced sterilizations.
So it was a climate of intense fear. Fear and distrust.
Absolutely. Official explanations for anything were viewed with suspicion, especially if something convenient happened to opponents of the regime.
Which brings us back to who was on Flight 171.
Yes. The passenger list adds layers to this. There was Rani Chandra, a very popular 27-year-old actress, former Miss Kerala, a rising star in South Indian films. She died along with her mother and 3 sisters, part of her troupe, a huge cultural loss. Her last film even had to be finished using a body double.
Such a tragedy for her family and fans.
And then there was another passenger, R. Panapan Nadar.
Okay, who was he?
He was 55, a lawyer, a politician, a 5-time member of the Legislative Assembly, known for his integrity, nicknamed Mayavi Panapan, the magician.
And the connection to the emergency.
He was a known, respected opponent of Indira Gandhi's faction. He'd been jailed multiple times for his political activities. And crucially, just before this flight, he'd apparently given a very critical speech about the emergency.
So his death
was seen by many as suspiciously convenient. The removal of a vocal critic during a time of intense repression.
The timing is certainly Striking.
And there's another human story here that only came out decades later. A man named Sajid Thungal, who organized Rani Chandra's tour. He was supposed to be on that flight.
He canceled.
Last minute. He lived for 45 years, presumed dead by many, carrying immense survivor's guilt and, likely, fear given the circumstances. He was finally reunited with his elderly mother in 2021. It just underscores the long shadow this event cast.
Incredible. So it leaves us with this stark question. Was it a tragic, coincidental, mechanical failure? Or was it something else, something politically motivated?
That's the core of the ambiguity. You have the plausible official report. Metal fatigue happens.
Right.
But you also have the undeniable context. A repressive regime, a vocal critic on board who dies suddenly, and that last-minute aircraft swap. Well, it does provide a theoretical window, however small, for something sinister.
Have there been other plane crashes suspected as assassinations?
Oh, definitely. History is full of them, where official causes are heavily disputed. Think of the Kashmir Princess in 1955, the Portuguese PM in 1980, the Polish President Kaczynski in 2010, even more recently, maybe Prigozhin in 2023. Lots of suspicion, even if proof is elusive.
So for Flight 171, there's no smoking gun. No concrete proof of sabotage ever emerged.
No, nothing concrete has ever been presented publicly, but the circumstances mean the story just hangs there in this unsettling space between plausible accident and compelling possibility.
So Indian Airlines Flight 171 ends up having these two narratives almost.
Exactly. For the families, it's a story of devastating loss from a technical failure. For history, it remains an unresolved question mark.
The official report explains the engine failure, the fire.
Mm-hmm.
But the politics of the emergency, that explains why the crash still resonates so strongly today, why it feels like more than just an accident.
It really does. It leaves you thinking about that very thin, very blurred line between tragic coincidence and political conspiracy.
And how difficult it can be to find the truth, especially when a whole nation is holding its breath in fear.